bit later than we had planned, and also apologies to San Diego State because we had planned a program around San Diego State football this weekend. Can't catch a break with Mother Nature apparently dumping an atmospheric river over San Diego County. 95% chance of shower. San Diego State hosting Boise State. That had been one of the focal points of today's podcast, but we did get the news. It was dropped in different forums. It was dropped via press release, via Kevin Acee of the Union Tribune, that the Padres, I will read this straight from the Union Tribune, Seidler family exploring sale of Padres. This news dropped at 8:55 this morning. The Seidler family stewardship of the Padres appears headed to a close. The team will announce Thursday that the Seidlers are exploring their strategic options, which could result in the sale of part or of all of the team. Of part or all the team. The team announcement comes just 2 years shy of the day that Peter Seidler passed away. Peter Seidler passed away on November 14th, 2023, and it took less than 2 years for a for sale sign to show up outside of Petco Park. So that's going to be the focus as we are processing this in real time, just like we were with Craig Stammen. I feel like the Padres are interfering with our desire to talk about San Diego State football. Not quite sure what's happened in there. The day that Craig Stammen got hired, we had John Schaefer on Section 1904, and we turned that into 40 minutes about Stammen and 10 minutes about San Diego State. But I guess that's just the way it goes. We always have tomorrow to discuss the Mountain West Conference matchup. There's going to be a lot of horrible takes about this over the next day, today, tomorrow, over the next couple of weeks. There's going to be a lot of really, really bad takes. And one of our goals, I think, is to avoid that. I don't know that we're going to be successful, John, but we will do our best not to have bad takes about this situation that the Padres, or portion of the Padres, come on. It appears like the Padres are for sale. We will read some of the details here. There was also a press release, so we will go over that with you for those that don't get access to such things. But everybody today wakes up and realizes that there's going to be new vision for the Padres, and I will admit it makes me a little sad. I mean, it makes me wistful for everything that was great about the Peter Seidler era, which does appear to be coming to a close. John, that was my first reaction. It wasn't, hey, I'm excited because, we could fill in this owner or that owner, and, we can talk about what the future might look like. We don't know. But my initial reaction was one of sadness. It really was. Like, I was sad because, I just felt like we were headed towards this date. I thought it would be after the new CBA. I thought it would be closer to a new media rights deal because that seemed to make a ton of sense. I suppose we can read in a little bit to why it's happening much sooner than some people had predicted. And we had predicted this on the record, whether it was here on Section 1904. I remember going on with Marty, but that was my first reaction. It made me sad knowing that the Peter Seidler era appears to be really, really coming to a close.
Yeah, I put a message from the YouTube chat up there a second ago where one of our listeners, viewers said, "I'm a little sad, boys." Yeah, that's the right take. It's not a hot take. You're not throwing any names out there. It's okay to be a little sad. Actually, I want to highlight this one too if I can find it. Our chat is moving. Here it is. Because I was also sad, and I also thought about something we talked about many months ago, which was how often the Padres would say, like, we're honoring Peter's legacy. This is what Peter would want. We're doing what Peter would want. This is absolutely not what Peter Seidler would want. If Peter Seidler were alive, there would not be a press release today saying that he and his family are, looking for investors and looking for buyers and getting out of the San Diego Padres game. So, yeah, it's sad. You can maybe get yourself over the sadness by getting excited about potential possibilities. I mean, I think that's what people are doing when they're throwing names out there. And I do think there's a better chance of finding another Peter Seidler by going to the open market as opposed to just looking at who's inside and being like, hey, which one of you can follow in Peter's legacy? So you can talk yourself into the optimistic viewpoint here, but overall, like, it always sucks when a team's being sold. It always sucks when a team's being sold. And this sucks. It sucks now. The whole process is going to suck. And it's probably going to suck all the way until we get a new owner. And then we'll sit there and see whether or not the new owner is better or worse than Peter Seidler. But Peter Seidler, in my opinion, one of the greatest owners I've ever seen in sports. It would be hard to top, which made his death sad. One of the reasons it made his death sad. And now it makes this sad. I'm sad.
Just like, yeah, again, I mean, we cannot sit here and be sad all day. But I mean, like you said, you do have to hold out some room for optimism because there is a phrase in life sometimes that the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And I think if you were to ask most people that the devil that you don't know might be better than the devils that you do, meaning the people that are running the Padres currently. And by name, that would be John Seidler, in my opinion. Let me read this press release from earlier today. The Seidler family today announced that it has decided to initiate a formal process to explore strategic options for the San Diego Padres, including a potential sale of the franchise. The decision follows months of careful consideration and consultation with trusted advisors. John Seidler, who never says anything publicly, talked about it yesterday with Dennis Lin. This is me, by the way. John Seidler, chairman of the San Diego Padres, said, quote, "The family has decided to begin a process of evaluating our future with the Padres, including a potential sale of the franchise. We will undertake this process with integrity and professionalism in a way that honors Peter's legacy and love for the Padres and lays the foundation for the franchise's long-term success. During the process, as we prepare for the 2026 season, the Padres will continue to focus on its players, employees, fans, community, while putting every resource into winning a World Series championship. We remain fully committed to the team, the fans, and the San Diego community. The club has engaged BDT and MSD partners. I don't know what that is. A trusted advisor to families and founder-led businesses to guide this process. The firm will oversee the process to ensure that it is conducted in a disciplined and a professional manner. The Seidler family and the Padres do not intend to comment further until the Padres have concluded. So whatever we got from John Seidler when he bounced between the television booth and the radio booth at the beginning of the 2025 season is probably going to be the only thing that we ever hear from John Seidler outside of some prepared comments when they're naming a street after Peter or if they're doing some sort of event. Other than that, it doesn't sound like we're going to get much more either on this or anything else. So that is the formality of the press release that was sent out a little bit earlier today. Again, it just is not lost on me that it was 2 years tomorrow that Peter passed away. And this is what we're talking about in less than 2 years' time. A great run in 2024 that ended in the NLDS to the Dodgers. Not so great this year, losing in the wild card round to the Chicago Cubs with questions, with a manager that walked away, with a general manager whose future still is in some question, whether it's at the end of this year or beyond, with players and payroll and all sorts of decisions. These are the things now, and a sale on top of it, another sale for the Padres on top of that as well. Yeah, I I thought this would happen. I think you and I agreed. I did not expect it to happen until after. I wonder, did they just look and go, wow, like this thing is, or this thing's it's got some problems. Maybe we cannot wait for a new CBA. Maybe we shouldn't wait for a work stoppage. Maybe we shouldn't wait for a new media rights deal. We got to get out from under this now. Maybe that's the message that's being sent here today. Maybe some of this has to do with the ongoing litigation between Sheil Seidler, Peter's widow, and the rest of his family on the other side. People have plenty of opinions about that. Or maybe this was just never really what any of these people wanted to do. This was what Peter wanted to do. And despite some commentary to the contrary, they've just decided, this ain't us. That this ain't for us. And it's time for us to try to put the for sale sign out there and see if we can cash in and go live lives someplace else and, just not be involved with this sort of stuff. I mean, who really knows, John? Who really knows?
I think often about a thing you said about a month ago in regards to AJ Preller and AJ Preller looking around and realizing this isn't the same job that I signed up for. I have a different boss and these are different parameters. And all we've heard for the last month or two is AJ Preller is talking to John Seidler about an extension. Well, now John Seidler's trying to sell the team. So AJ Preller knows that, like, best case scenario, he's in a different situation a couple years from now, right? Worst case scenario, he's in a much worse situation than he was. Either he gets an owner who is incredibly difficult to work for, or he gets an owner that wants to restructure in a way that AJ is uncomfortable with, or he gets an owner who wants to meddle in some way that AJ is uncomfortable with. I I understand, I think, a little bit better, or I'm assuming a little bit that this may be why AJ Preller has not yet extended beyond this season. And maybe AJ's just decided, like, look, if you're selling, sell, and I'll talk to the new owners then. Like, I'm not going to sign a contract to be here and then have my boss, my team, my everything get changed underneath me, and then I just have to sit here and take it. I imagine those things are maybe related, which leads me to believe that Preller knew this was coming. Preller was not surprised by this news. In which case, I'm not going to say Preller would have leaked it or something like that, but like once more than a two or three people know news like this, you kind of have to get it out there and get in front of it. But this does make me think that it's related to the Preller extension situation.
Could be. I mean, I don't know why people wouldn't draw that conclusion. I mean, it's certainly possible. Although I would also argue maybe AJ Preller should just put his name on a piece of paper and be like, "Yo, I'm getting paid no matter what." I mean, if somebody wants to pay me not to work here,
Maybe. Yep.
go ahead. Like, I'll take a couple years of this. What do I? But yeah, I think AJ. Again, yesterday we talked about it with Dennis Lynn. You can find that at section1904.com. We talked a little bit about what the holdup is. I think immediately this is the reaction, right? Like this has to be some part. But I also think that's a detail. I do think that is a detail into the bigger picture, which is what do the Padres look like in a couple of years? What are the Padres going to look like in a couple of years? And will a new owner come in here, and will a new owner be more inspirational than everything that we have heard from the placeholders, from the seat fillers since November 14th of 2023? Because there hasn't been anything inspirational from Eric Katsenda, from John Seidler, from anybody. None of these people at all. Sorry. None of them at all have any sort of personality. None of them have any sort of inspirational theme to them. And again, to be fair, they didn't ask for this. Peter Seidler did ask for this sort of stuff. But you do just look back at some of the things that were said, and it's really easy to go back and be like, yeah, these guys were just full of shit the whole time. The whole thing about a new owner and about a new process is, I do agree. So, that a new owner could come in here and somebody, it can't be worse in some people's opinion than how it's being run. I get a little leery about that kind of sentiment. I also, I just I'm not clear on what, I don't have a great feel for what Major League Baseball would allow to happen in San Diego. And, that's when people start saying things about Mark Cuban and Carlos Slim, and people start talking about all the other ideas, right? All these great ideas about owners that could come in here and owners that could step in and owners that could make us reminiscent and make us feel things like what Peter Seidler made us feel. I just do not trust Major League Baseball to approve an owner that could come into San Diego and say, we deserve a seat at the big table. Like with the Dodgers, we can spend money with some of the best teams in the sport, right? And this is presuming that the financial structure of Major League Baseball after a new collective bargaining agreement is going to be recognizable at all. And I don't know that it will or won't be. But it was a theme that what Peter did here did make other owners look bad. And it is probably not a part of the history that the rest of MLB is going to be anxious to move towards again. And I do get a little, I am suspicious. I am, just a little bit negative about that. The baseball isn't going to allow somebody to come in here and be like, yeah, I'm just going to open up the wallet, baby. I'm going to let it fly. I'm going to do all these sort of things. We have the commissioner of baseball and other owners commenting on the Padres' financial situation on the record over the last couple of years. So I do think they are going to be paying pretty close attention to that. And remember, you can't just buy this. You have to be approved to buy this. That's a really, really important point. Now, from that standpoint, again, find another creative owner, somebody that can come in here, somebody that's got vision, somebody that's got charisma and charm, somebody that can, get everybody on board here and make us feel good again. Similar to the Peter Seidler era did. But I must admit, I'm just a little, I don't know that I just fully trust Major League Baseball's process in finding somebody that's going to come in here and do the kind of things that Peter Seidler was willing to do, which was spend and borrow and say, hey, I'm going to do these sort of things. And as long as I continue to inflate value, I can live with a contract that might be crap. I can live with some, I have tenants, I have people, the city. I can live with all this sort of stuff. I can manage this. This is good. Um, I don't know. I guess I just don't trust baseball owners. That they're not going to find somebody who isn't going to treat this thing like his own personal ATM. That was the great thing about Peter Seidler. He's a billionaire that came from private equity, but he never really treated this like it was his own personal ATM. And I am fearful that sometimes, that's where this ends. But that's a real glass half empty kind of situation. I mean, maybe you do find the right owner that comes in here. It's like, yes, that's the thing. Boom. I'm going to follow up exactly what it was that was going on over here for the last 5 years. I hope that's the case, but baseball doesn't exactly inspire me to believe that that'll happen.
Partly because all of this stuff is like, even the AC article that broke this news, he has some information about like the financial framework of the ownership, the current ownership group. And I will read this part of the article. The Padres ownership group includes at least 10 people or entities. He doesn't know how many, but at least 10 people or entities. The largest stake, around 24%, is held by the Peter Seidler Trust, of which Shield Seidler and their 3 young children are the beneficiaries. The Seidler family, including Peter Seidler's mother, siblings like John Seidler, and other relatives, collectively controls about 20% of the team. The remaining portion of the ownership is split between 8 to 10 other separate stakeholders. 8 to 10 other separate stakeholders. And then it says down here, it is not known how much the team will ultimately be available for purchase. And then in parentheses, a minority owner whose stake of approximately 10% makes him one of the franchise's largest single stakeholders is currently in the process of selling his portion of the Padres, according to sources. I have so many questions. Is the Seidler family just selling their 20%? Is that what this is supposed to mean? The 10% that's being sold by a minority owner, is it in the process of being sold? Who's it being sold to? Is it being sold to Mark Cuban? Is it being sold to Shield Seidler, who already owns 24% of the team? Is she required to sell her stake in the team? Or can the new owners just buy the 20%? Like, I'm so confused by all of this. But to your point, baseball controls a lot of it, even if it's like a black box for the rest of us. I think Ace even made reference to this, where Shield Seidler was basically baseball looked at Shield Seidler and said, "We will not approve her to be the control person of the Padres." Mark Cuban at one point said, while he was the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, pretty early on when he used to fight with officials and get fined all the time and do that stuff, I believe it was the Cubs came up for sale, and he really wanted to buy the Cubs. And he said that he was told by other owners in Major League Baseball, because it has to be unanimous vote, don't bother. You're not going to get approved. Like, do not waste the time and money. We will not approve. I will not approve you. And so, yes, not only do they need to find a buyer for whatever percentage of this team is actually for sale, they need to find a buyer that all of the other owners in Major League Baseball stamp their approval on, which is a whole other thing.
Exactly. That's kind of what led to the whole Jeff Morad thing ending prematurely. Is you had other owners who despised Jeff Morad and said to his face, "I will never approve you to be an owner. I will never approve you. I will never approve any ownership group that you're a part of. You can forget it. Go kick rocks. Get out of here, sleazeball." So, that's how that thing ended. That's, my dramatic interpretation how that thing went down. But I would suspect too that especially when baseball seems to be on the verge of some sort of labor situation here, that what it is that Peter was willing to do when it came to some of the finances with the San Diego Padres ran contrary to how some of these mid-market teams, John, were supposed to be run. How dare you? How dare you get out of your lane and think that you can keep up financially with the Mets and with the Dodgers and with the Cubs and with the Yankees? How dare you? How dare you do that? Again, remember, The MLB commissioner spoke on the record about some of the debt that the Padres were incurring. They talked about that. We learned about loans, things like that were leaked out. But I always thought Peter could keep his head above water because of what it was that was happening with the baseball operation side and the business side of how good of a job they've done in terms of creating revenue sources through Petco Park, even while dealing with a less than ideal television deal, which it sounds like there's some things happening on that front, but that's for a different day. Um, but the rest of it, they might not look at the books the same way. You know, again, like a lot of these billionaire owners, they don't care about baseball. They're not passionate about baseball. They might not even be passionate about the city where their baseball team is located. They just do it because it's part of their business, right?
It's a good investment.
Think of the who's the family that owned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? The Glazers, the Glazer family. You know, they went out there, they owned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then they bought Manchester United.
Yeah.
And they weren't passionate about Premier League soccer. They weren't passionate about football, about Manchester United. It was just a business for them. And you know, that's sort of the scary part about this is you really felt like Peter. I know he didn't talk a lot about legacy, but a lot of people around Peter talked about legacy. And it was important for Peter, especially in a post-Charger San Diego, that the city and the county had something it could be proud of. He believed in that. He believed in San Diego and he believed in the power of the Padres. He believed that he wasn't an owner. He believed that he was a steward for a period of time. And that's the thing that makes me worry about another owner coming in here. Is it just going to be one of these sort of distant billionaires who doesn't really care, you know, that he just looks at it from a bottom line standpoint? But I guess there's not a lot of ton of not a point. There's no real point in worrying about that today. I guess it's just back to the here and to the now. Which is, you know, what does this mean? I mean, like, what does any of this mean for free agency? What does this mean for AJ Preller? I guess we have an answer as to why it is that John Seidler doesn't really talk, and we don't expect him to talk. And you know, I suppose all that sort of stuff now it comes into focus a little bit more, doesn't it? We're going through, and I got here, it was John Moores. And then John Moores took a little bit of a hiatus, and it was Jeff Morad, and then it was John Moores again, and then it was Ron Fowler, and then it was Peter, and then it's been in flux over the last couple of years. And now who knows what this is going to look like over the next couple of years. But I mean, I think people are right to speculate that this could change everything. This could change the structure of a front office on the business side, on the baseball side. This could change people. I mean, how close was Manny Machado to Peter and Sheil Seidler? You know, the fact that neither one of them could be involved in this, Peter obviously through passing, and Sheil, who even knows what this means. What does that mean for Manny? You know, I don't know. Like, I don't know. You talked about it from AJ Preller's perspective. What does that mean for Manny Machado? I don't know how anybody can answer any of these questions right now. Everything is up in the air. Everything about the Padres is up in the air today because of this.
Yeah, and like I wrote down in my notes, you know, there will never be another Peter Seidler. I think going into this, the only way to survive this and not go crazy is to believe there might be. There might be another Peter Seidler out there if you get incredibly lucky and you find someone who has money to burn and the personality to lead this team and show everyone like all I care about is winning a World Series title. But you're right, most people who buy these things, it's investments for them, and like honestly, I'm assuming that's how the Seidler family looks at this outside of Peter. Like this is an investment for them. As much as they wanted to win a World Series for Peter, I don't think it's a thing that drives them personally.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they're looking at a sale, I think tells me that the Padres are maybe not in the greatest financial place. And these people are like, look, Peter would be pushing the gas pedal right now because he can smell the World Series around the corner and
Yep.
he's whatever. But like, we're not going to push the gas pedal. Like, what are our other options here? And I was a little blown back actually. There was a paragraph in this AC piece where he said a preliminary value of the team, according to a source familiar with discussions. Who would that source be? Whatever. Regarding the sale, is estimated at $1.8 billion, which makes some semblance of sense. Like the Tampa Bay Rays just sold for like 1.7. It's kind of in the same ballpark. Although I think you get This is another question I have. Do you get Petco Park?
Mhm.
Do you get all the events? Do you get the real estate that the Padres own, or are the investors going to take that and be like, no, you're just buying I don't whatever. But AC writes that price would include the assumption of about $300 million in debt and more than $150 million in paybacks to owners for two cash infusions made in recent years. That's $450 million, almost $500 million. So at that point, I guess you're paying 1.8 billion for a team that's worth 1.8 billion, but the owners that are leaving are probably, I don't know. Things got so complicated. Both they got complicated when Peter was here, but we trusted that he knew what he was doing. And then once Peter died, it was just like this thing is so complicated. Like where was Peter trying to go with this? We're not exactly sure, and therefore it's impossible for them to carry on Peter's legacy. And I don't know. I guess they should be applauded for being like, "Hey, we're not Peter, and this isn't our thing, so we're just gonna get out of the way in case it's someone else's thing." But should we play the Eric Grupner clip that we have from Marty from like 6 months ago, where
Yeah,
he's
before we do though, because I
okay,
just want to follow up, and I think that's what makes it so difficult to talk about the finances here. I reluctantly got involved in some Twitter stuff yesterday because somebody was making the case. It was the Fernando Tatis Jr. stuff, which again I thought we would talk about today. But it was the Fernando stuff and people saying that the Padres, again, like people always laugh at Bob Nightingale and refer to him as Boob Nightingale. But every once in a while, he might have a crazy story or idea, but sometimes it is rooted in something that could feel real, like the Padres' finances. He wasn't saying trade Tatis because the Padres would be better or whatever. He's just like, Dennis sort of suggested the same yesterday. At some point, you're going to have three players that are making close to $100 million.
a fork in the road. He called it a fork in the road.
So, and others around baseball do look at that and they do say, well, listen, if the other guy was there, maybe, but who are any of these people? What do we know about them and their level of commitment to carry this thing through? We don't know that. Um, where was I going with this? So, from that standpoint, I got involved because somebody was defending the Padres' finances yesterday on Twitter. And I was like, you don't know what the Padres' finances are. I'm not saying I do, I don't. But what I do know is you can't just scribble down some numbers about ticket sales and revenue that is tossed out there for public consumption and draw a conclusion. That's not the way it works. Do you know anything about the hundreds of millions of dollars of loans that the Padres have taken out? Have you ever heard of Ares? Ares, John? Have you ever heard of Ares? Have people who are no? Why would you?
No.
Why would anybody bother paying attention to this stuff? I found out this information a couple of years ago when the Padres, or when San Diego hosted the winter meetings, and somebody said, "Well, what do you make of the Padres taking out this loan from Ares?" I was like, "What the fuck is Ares? I don't even know what you're talking about." Then I looked it up and I saw, oh wow, okay, they've taken out a lot of loans. They've taken out a lot of money. These are the kind of loans. I don't know what kind of return or what kind of rate you get on a loan like this for tens of millions of dollars. We heard the loan from baseball. What is it? I mean, this stuff you can't draw any conclusions, just because you see a sold out crowd. Hey, they sold out 72 times. How bad could it be? It's not the way this works. It's just not the way that works, especially when you have a lot of these contracts. So it is possible somebody looked at this and was like, yo, I'm getting out of the way of this. I mean, this thing is a bus, and I'm not going to be standing in front of this bus when some of these loans come due and some of these other owners are expecting certain things. Peter was willing to cut a check if somebody was, this is speculation, but my understanding was if somebody inside of ownership who had a minority stake in ownership was like, yo, I don't know about these cash calls all the time, be like, how much do you want? Here's a check. Leave. I'm running the team. Here you go. Here's a check. You don't like the way this is being done? Fine. Here you go. I'll buy you out right now. Is that really what John Seidler wants to do? I don't think so.
No, of course not.
So, again, I mean, I just don't believe, I mean, people really twisted themselves in the knots to think that, John Seidler was somehow some sort of riding in here on some sort of white horse, willing to, save the day and protect the integrity of the Padres and Peter Sadler's legacy and all this other sort of hokey shit that they would put out there. But I just never really thought it was the case. And I'm not saying that this proves us right. I mean, somebody independently might have looked at the books and said, yeah, listen, somebody's going to have to pay these bills. and you still have to deal with this lawsuit. And this lawsuit doesn't seem to be going away between Peter's widow and the rest of the family, unfortunately. And now we're getting into a spot where some of these contracts and what about this other business deal over here, and so it's a confluence of events. But yeah, let's play the Eric Grupner stuff. This is from February. It was from spring training, and of course it was Marty. This is on Marty's Twitter or X, and Marty, based on what we had heard after a tumultuous offseason at the end of 2024 before 2025 began. There had been some speculation that the Padres at some point were going to be put up for sale. And so Marty cut right to the chase and asked the CEO of the Padres if there was any truth to this.
Sorry, can you rule out any possibility of this team being sold?
I have been told multiple times that the team is not for sale and will not be sold. The Seidler family has viewed this team as a generational asset. Peter spoke about that. The rest of his family has continued to speak about that. This team is not going to be relocated. This team is not going to be sold. The commitment remains to keep this team in the current ownership that it's in right now and continue to run it the way we've been running it.
Eric, you're projected to be well above the luxury tax line. What is the team's thought on potentially paying that tax at the end of the year?
Yeah, we currently are projected to be a CBT payor this year.
All right, whatever. This is about payroll and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Listen, it's a bit of a gotcha from February. It is possible that Eric Grupner, I even would say it might even be probable that Eric Grupner was relaying information that he himself had heard. I would go as far as to say that. Eric Grupner is a lawyer, and that was probably the truth on what was the date? February what?
Oh man, I had it.
February whatever. That probably was the
February
truth
18th. Yeah.
On February 18th. Now, if Eric Grupner had said the same thing yesterday to a group of sponsors, would I say that he was being 100% truthful? I don't think so. But that he was saying what he was saying back in February, I think it's at least plausible, John, that that might have been the truth that day. Might have been.
Yeah. So in the last couple of days, I've heard several different people write and talk about this, saying that, like, I've been wondering, like, in other sports, free agency opens and it's a bang, right? It's a fire hose of news and transactions and this person signing this person. Holy crap. Wow. Oh my God. MLB free agency opened and nothing has happened. Like, they could sign a free agent right now. It's open and nothing has happened. And I kept trying to figure out, like, why. And the best answer I could get, or at least the most consistent answer that I keep getting, is this is the time of year when everyone is setting their budgets for next year. Everyone is sitting around looking at the money and saying, how much money do we have for 2026? And the fact that this is coming now tells me those conversations may not have gone very well, that they may have looked at the budget for 2026 and went, oh man, I don't know if we can afford this. Maybe we need to be, if we can't afford this, maybe we need to be looking at another option. So to your point, I do think in February of last year, they were like, we can ride this out. Like, we'll be okay. And I think it was maybe just within the last week or two that they were looking at the 2026 finances and got nervous enough and went like, we can't sit here and be nervous about this. Like, we should back out and give someone else a chance. So I have a number of questions to throw at you, but this one came in from the chat. I'll even put it on the screen so you can see it. I'm not gonna ask.
We're chatting, baby. We're live today.
Yeah, I'm not gonna ask it the same way this guy's asking it. He's saying, Darren, what is the relocation fee for owners these days? But I did notice in the Kevin Acey article that broke this news, he was like, oh, in case you're worried about a new owner coming in and relocating the team, their lease with Petco Park runs through 2033. And I don't know. I've been following. I don't know if you've been following any of this. UCLA wants to move out of the Rose Bowl and move into SoFi Stadium, and the Rose Bowl in Pasadena are suing them. And they're going, you have a lease. I mean, I think their lease runs through 2050 or something like that. But you can get out of these things if you really, really want to. You can pay to get out of pretty much any contract. And this morning I was doing the thing that everyone's doing where I'm looking around going like, what super rich person has talked about wanting to own a baseball team that doesn't own a baseball team? And all of them are people who are like, I want to bring a baseball team somewhere. I want to bring a baseball team to Portland. I want to bring a baseball team to Nashville. I want to bring a I think there's 0% chance that the Padres are not in San Diego long term. Do you agree with me?
Oh, I don't even think it's worth talking about.
Okay, thank you. I had to ask the question. AC brought it up in the article that broke the news. That's the only reason I was like, this is worth at least asking the question. All right. So
Well, I mean, the reason why it's brought up, and I mean, I think what happened was, I don't, again, forgive me. I'm sort of a simpleton here that I like talking about the sports part about it, not just the business side. But this popped up. I think that this was a claim that was made by Seidler, that the intent of the Seidler family would be to relocate the Padres. So I think it popped up then. That's why you even heard it. Did you hear it? Eric Grupner said it about relocation in the clip that you just played. He did mention relocation in that clip. He said the team isn't going to be sold. It isn't going to be relocated. Now, that shouldn't make anybody feel great since he said it wasn't going to be sold. And then here we are 8 months later, and we're talking about the team potentially being sold. Like, what else wasn't truthful? What else was not accurate from Eric Grupner's statement? But I think that was a claim that was made by Seidler in her lawsuit. And like the only merit that I would even give that is, that I have heard some suggest that, having a ballpark in downtown San Diego really kind of makes it incredibly inconvenient for a lot of people that are in North County San Diego. And if you had an opportunity to move, but again, it's just sort of spitball and stuff. It's not actual, like, not planning. So, you always just like, oh, well, if you had it to do over again, and like the success of downtown San Diego, East Village, the gas lamp, I think it speaks for itself. But think about the Atlanta Braves, right? The Atlanta Braves, after they moved from their longtime stadium, built a ballpark in downtown, decided in a really, really short amount of time, this ain't it for us. We're going to move. We're going to go someplace else. And they went out to the suburbs. Forgive me
Cobb
for
County.
not knowing the geography of Atlanta.
Yeah.
But they decided really, really quickly, like, this place, this kind of sucks. People don't want to come here. People in the suburbs. And, that's more our, I can't imagine the Padres have done such a great job appealing to people that live south of the 8 freeway. I can't. But, it's one of those things you kind of get, gets tossed out there. Maybe you hear somebody complaining like, it'd be great if we could move it to, Oceanside or whatever. But still, like, I just think that's kind of was thrown into a lawsuit. I've never heard any reason to take that seriously myself. So
Okay.
I wouldn't today. I wouldn't waste a single second thinking about it.
And I will say, as someone who has,
And by the way, the relocation fee was absolutely free for the A's, which really bothered a lot of people in Major League Baseball because they completely waived the relocation fee for the A's.
because they couldn't get any public money for the stadium. That's stupid. They shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I will say, as someone who has lived through some sales of the teams that I root for, I was a New Jersey Nets fan before they were purchased by first a Russian oligarch and then Joe Tsai when they were moved to Brooklyn, and the Dallas Mavericks were purchased not that long ago, and I will tell you that the initial walk-in of a new owner is never, hey guys, we're gonna be cutting payroll, things are gonna get tight around here. It is always, we have a dream. We have a dream to win a World Series. I guarantee you, whoever ends up being the new owner control person of this team is going to have a press conference where they mention Peter Seidler's legacy, Peter Seidler's dream, bringing a World Series to San Diego, and they say that's our goal too. Alex Rodriguez and whoever he got to help him buy the Minnesota Timberwolves basically made this speech, and then it was revealed that they had plans to gut the team anyway. When those plans got revealed, they kind of changed course and they were like, no, that's a lie. We're going to invest. But whoever comes in is going to speak a good game, at least at first, about supporting the team, putting money in, trying to win a title, all of that. The real test is going to come 5-10 years down the line to be like, well, have they done the thing where they dug deep into their pockets when they needed to make sure that this train can stay on the tracks type of thing? But whoever comes in, like I've seen people go, oh, it's the bad old days. Not yet. Whoever comes in, assuming they find an owner, I don't know if they can find one before the lockout, but assuming they find an owner, whoever comes in for the first few years is totally going to support this team, believe in this team, and try to make them a winner at first. When this core's window closes is when the questions will get more real. So I don't think people got to worry about this team being a 74 win team with, the 20th highest payroll in baseball right away.
Yeah, I mean, you see some predictions about fire sales, and I don't think anything can be ruled out. I mean, I just do not, because I think it's possible that somebody can come in here and they can look and they can say, these contracts are bad. This isn't good. Somebody could look at it purely from a business standpoint, whereas Peter's like, yeah, I know they were going to age bad, but I'm in private equity. I can find a couple of bucks. I can make it work, right? We're gonna keep ourselves afloat here financially, so it's never going to be all that bad. Somebody might look at it and think the complete opposite, which is, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Why do we have this guy here? This guy's terrible. Somebody might look, let's just go back as a hypothetical to the Fernando Tatis Jr. stuff. And somebody might look and go, hey, like, this is a big asset. We could find a private equity guy to come in here and be like, what is the best asset that we have to A, reduce a little bit of cost, and B, come in here and, fill out some of the gaping holes that we have. Somebody might look at it that way. And again, I know somebody will remind us that he has a no trade clause, but it's not like the Padres haven't tried to trade players with no trade clauses before. So, kind of part of the history around here. Again, these are hypotheticals. Not saying it's going to happen, and I don't mean to sound like it's just Debbie Downer and I'm a doomer about what the next Padre owner is going to be. I just know it's going to be really, really hard to compare to what it was that we had here, which has sort of sent us into this. I shouldn't say spiral either, because for 2 years it was good. For 2 years, back-to-back 90-win seasons.
90 wins.
Going to the playoffs doesn't happen around these parts very often. So, at least some sort of structure was in place. But I would be willing to bet you if you could do some sort of anonymous survey for Padres employees, I think that they probably would rather roll the dice with a change in ownership and see what it is that's going to walk through the door next than continue with the status quo. Because I think there's a lot of people who feel like Peter Seidler's whole motto was best in show. We're going to be best in show. And that was not just in terms of baseball and business. I mean, every little detail. I used to hear these stories about how Peter would spare no expense for something like getting the marketing team the right equipment so that they could post social. I'm not so sure that best in show has really been the theme. When you come in and one of the first things you do is trade Juan Soto, and you don't give your GM any money at the trade deadline, so he's got to trade away all of your prospects. Yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure about any of that, but again, this is sort of outsider's perspective, sort of chiming in on some of the things that we've seen over the last couple of years, while they have been successful and while they have gone to the postseason, winning 90-plus games in back-to-back seasons, which is an uncommon occurrence here in San Diego. So, a lot. I mean, there's a lot to it here today.
Can I be pessimistic for a moment? I've also worked for companies while they were for sale. And when that happens, the situations that I have been in, which I have been told are not uncommon when you're working for a company that is looking for a new buyer, is they were looking to cut costs, because the more expensive it is to run the thing, the less appealing it is to potential buyers. So, two-part question for you. One,
I mean, a great example would just be the Nationals and Juan Soto, right?
exactly. Yes. Two-part question. One, what are the chances AJ Preller gets extended? Question mark. Just at the end of that sentence. What are the chances AJ Preller actually gets extended? Because the other option is either him or John Seidler go, we're going to back away from this and we'll figure it out when we know who's coming in as the new owner. And addendum to that, question 1B, are they going to let AJ spend any money this offseason? Like, really at all? Because the higher that payroll goes, the more contracts you sign, especially, the longer they go out, you are now telling potential buyers it is going to be more expensive to run this team once you get here than it otherwise would be. And you're locked into these contracts that we've signed for you. Whereas a potential buyer would much rather walk in with lower overhead and an idea that they are in control. They can sign people. They can trade for people. They can do whatever they want to the roster and the team. So, but take either one of those or both of those.
I just think it's too early to tell. I mean, again, do we all have to take everything that's being said recently with a pinch of salt by Eric Grubner because he says top 10 payroll? And anytime anybody says top 10 payroll, usually what that means is you're 10.
10,
Like,
yeah.
what I
Maybe
mean?
11 and you didn't expect that one team to go
Yeah.
above you. Yeah.
Or, if you were to say top 5, there's a good chance you're going to be 5. A friend of mine had a funny line about this, like if a person that you were dating said that you were like definitely, well, how did my friend say it? It's very funny. He said something like, if somebody said like you were definitely top 10 lover that your partner had, you're probably your 10th.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise,
There are at least 7 people ahead of you that they remember.
which is very funny. So, again, I don't mean to knock it. Top 10 payroll is fine by me. I think you can win with the top 10 payroll. I just don't know, John. I mean, I really don't know the answer to that. I don't know that anybody, I mean, if you're asking me for like a personal opinion, I don't have a good read on any of it.
Do you think the Preller situation has changed since 48 hours ago?
Preller's a pretty savvy guy. I think he suspected. I don't think people are blown away that the Padres are for sale. I just think maybe the timing caught some people off guard. That this was something, and one person's interpretation to me, somebody who understands the business of baseball very well, was, wow, they must have looked at this and thought, it's a little worse than we thought. Maybe we should just go now. Maybe we can't wait for a new CBA. Maybe we can't wait for a new media rights deal. Maybe it's just in our best interest to go now, especially with the lawsuit that the bills are really starting to pile up here. And maybe we just need to do what's best from a business standpoint. Again, that's the other thing that we said, I think, consistently from November 14th, 2023, the day that Peter Seidler died. Like, thing really wasn't always run as a business. It was run like a baseball team. It was run like a passion project. And from that moment on, it felt like everything was being run as a business, which is standard operating procedure in the sport, right? So, I understand it. I do. And maybe you just look and you're like, hey, like the bills are piling up here. Does anybody want to pull money out from other investment to pay for this the way that no, nobody does. Okay. Well, then I guess we're left with very little choice. I just would say the one thing, my own personal opinion would be, I just think it was so much lip service about Peter Seidler's legacy. I mean, that's the part to me that I feel like has been insulting to people who are fans of Peter's and of the city of San Diego and to Padre fans. That's the part I feel like has been really used and leveraged almost emotionally against Padre fans, that somehow this was Peter's legacy. Like, sorry, like I don't buy any of that. Never really did. And that's the part I think today that probably stings the most. I don't know. Like I said, I mean, sort of cynically, I think Peters or AJ should just sign the extension. What are they going to do? Fire you? They still got to pay you. You know what I mean? Like, just take their money, man, if that extension's on the table. But maybe he's got more principles than me, and I've seen a lot of pictures recently posted on social media of Peter and Sheil Seidler and AJ, and it does make you think, it does make you think, but I think we'll get our answers here soon enough.
Yeah, it did strike me as a little weird that this announcement came, a week after they unveiled Peter Seidler Way. Like that, it felt a little, if there is an afterlife and Peter's looking down at all of us, he's going, come on, guys, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, there's also some theories out there that, again, to just be devil's advocate, because these aren't necessarily my theories, but I've seen them. Which is, this was kind of, Peter's. I mean, I think Peter was really about legacy. Like, I do think that legacy mattered to him, not in an egotistical way, but I do think being named the person of the year in San Diego and all that sort of stuff really mattered to Peter.
Yeah.
How
and
he
you remember
did
it
it.
matters.
Yeah, and I think he did it because of his like love for baseball, the Padres in the city of San Diego. Myself, again, maybe I'm naive. It's certainly possible that I am blind spots for Peter, but I know others who go, "Hey, listen, he kind of knew where he was in life and what was going on with his health. That they had a couple of years, like a short amount of time to do something, and he would put his family in a situation where they were going to be financially taken care of for the rest of their lives. And, he was willing to do these things right up into the point of his passing. And then, it was okay. There's a framework here that can still be successful for another couple of years. And, then it's time to turn it over to somebody else, right? After I'm gone. And everybody's going to be taken care of, and everybody's going to have a very, very happy life. That's possible. That is possible. As I've said, I've got a blind spot for Peter Seidler, and I admit it. Maybe I'm naive about this sort of stuff. It is possible, John. I can admit that I am, because I knew him personally, and because I did like talking to him about stuff that had nothing to do with baseball and trade deadlines, but about life and my dad, and that mattered to me. And our mothers were born in our families were from the same place, so we always would talk about New Rochelle, New York. So we would talk about these sort of things, and I always found him to be incredibly sincere. But as somebody reminded me today, he's a billionaire that came from private equity, and these guys know how to, really increase the value of things, to turn them around and to sell them. And I suppose it would be irresponsible to completely rule that out as something that was impossible on his behalf. But what I choose to believe is what I choose to believe, and I just don't believe that we would have seen this day. I don't myself, but maybe he just recognized, hey, listen, man, the end is near for me, and I'm just going to set this up. It's going to be good for a couple of years. Do what you can, do everything you can to like break through and make this happen. And then you guys are going to be set for the rest of your lives. And if it happens, wonderful. You guys are going to be even in better shape. But if you can sell us for a couple $1 billion, and I think 1.8 is pretty low for the Padres myself, but
I think so too.
these things are always low. These estimates are always low when it comes to these teams.
Well,
So
also,
I would say this is at least $2+ billion from where I sit.
Especially if it includes the freaking tailgate lot and the part, like if it includes the real estate part, like it's way more than 1.8. That's why I'm curious to find out. We probably won't find out until a sale goes through. I feel like we've talked almost every angle of this without doing the silly thing where we just throw out names of rich people, which we don't need to do. Do you want to talk about the Tatis thing? Because I think the Tatis thing and the way that Dennis addressed it yesterday, I think this is all tied together. Not that Dennis thought the sale was coming, but you even said it. Like Dennis was like, hey, they're going to have financial problems soon. There's going to be a fork in the road that they have to deal with. And Dennis was kind of like, yeah, they might have to trade Fernando Tatis Jr. in a year or two to get out from under that. Or option B, which he maybe wasn't even thinking about, although he's Dennis, so he probably was. Option B is it's someone else's problem because they've sold the team to someone else. So do you want to talk about the Tatis thing? I know it was on your mind before all this happened.
I don't feel like it's important. I mean, I just don't understand, and again, I think that this got interpreted. Even just now, I was going back and not back and forth, but I saw Carlo, my buddy Carlo from where does he work? CBS 8, who was talking to me about the use of anonymous sources. Like, I don't have any issue using anonymous sources. I've used them for like 20 years. You know what I mean? Like I'm all for it. I just don't understand why the Padres, Kevin Acee, I was scrolling through Twitter last night. Maybe this is my mistake, John. Scrolling through Twitter. When has a story ever ended well that started with? So I was scrolling through Twitter.
Never, not
Pretty
once.
much never, right? But I was scrolling through Twitter last night and I saw a headline, and it was Kevin Acee. And the headline said, I'm scrolling to find it. Padres say Fernando Tatis Jr. won't be traded this offseason. I'm like, whoa, okay. Got a development. The GM meetings are happening in Vegas. You know what happens at the GM meetings? You get access to the general managers. You get to talk to them on the record. They're obligated to be there. They give you a schedule when every general manager is scheduled to speak. I've been to the GM meetings. Mostly boring, but at least you do get access to general managers that you might not normally get. And I see this headline. And I open up the story. I'm like, yes, okay. The Padres have said they are not trading Fernando Tatis Jr. The Padres have no intention of trading Fernando Tatis Jr. this offseason. A report earlier in the week became a talking point as the possibility mushroomed as it wound through the vast expanse of the World Wide Web and made its way to general manager meetings at the Cosmopolitan Hotel. This is by the way, can we just comment on Kevin's writing?
World
That
Wide
is
Web.
a very, very, as somebody who is oftentimes accused of being long-winded, that is a very long-winded way of saying there's some bullshit report out there that I have to fucking respond to. Right?
Correct.
I mean, trust me when I tell you. I mean, that's some decent writing. A report earlier in the week became a talking point as the possibility mushroomed as it wound through the vast expanse of the World Wide Web and made its way to the general manager's meetings at the Cosmopolitan Hotel. That's some good writing from Kevin. That's not as good as the story in the New York Times about the penny, but that's some good writing from the ace man. I'm like, okay, good. Like Kevin found somebody here to say this, to put an end to this nonsense. Quote, we're not trading Tatis. One Padres source said emphatically on Wednesday. Multiple team sources said over the past 2 days that the idea of moving their all-star right fielder and one of the most popular players in the major leagues has not been discussed internally or with other teams this offseason. And I keep scrolling looking for somebody to say this on the record, and nobody has said this on the record. And there's nothing holding anybody back from saying on the record, Fernando Tatis Jr. isn't going anywhere. There's nothing stopping that. As a matter of fact, Ben Cherington, who's the general manager of the Pirates, has been, he has been inundated. I mean, they just keep asking this guy over and over and over again, are you trading Paul Skeens to the Yankees or not? And
his responses are very funny.
Yeah, he's like, we're not. Like, it's the same answer every time. Like, you guys can keep asking, it's the same answer. But Paul Skeens is telling teammates that he wants to go someplace. Like, yeah, no, it's not happening. And I just don't understand that. I mean, we're talking about Fernando Tatis Jr. If you don't want to go on the record saying that we're not going to trade Yuki Matsui or Jake Cronenworth, I understand that. Yeah, I understand that because who could predict it? But this is Fernando Tatis Jr. I don't know why anybody would hesitate to say on the record. If you're going to say off the record, and Kevin's word here was emphatically,
Yes.
Can you be emphatic if you're anonymous? I don't even know that is possible. But I guess it is. And I just don't like, why doesn't somebody just come out and be like, yeah, we're not doing that. Stop asking. Let me just save everybody time. Let me save the vast expanse of the World Wide Web, as Kevin writes here. Well, I don't understand. Like, what is the big deal? Now, Dennis did a good job yesterday of saying why you can't say you're not interested in a player because that's part of the CBA.
Right.
But there is nothing stopping somebody from speaking on the record and saying we are not trading Fernando Tatis Jr. So why don't they just do it? I don't get it.
Okay. I have two theories here. The first theory is that AJ Preller never says he's never going to do anything.
Fair.
Because he's like, I don't know, man. Maybe the Pirates call and they say Skeens for Tatis. Like, all right, screw it. You got me. So that could be one. What makes me think it's not AJ Preller, and you and Dennis were talking about this before we pressed record yesterday about how AJ Preller is a different guy when he's on the radio than he is when he's off the radio. But I don't think I've ever seen AJ Preller say anything emphatically. I'm not sure that's part of his character. So then it made me wonder, maybe it was Josh Stein. And maybe what they really want to avoid is people going, wait, why's the assistant GM giving quotes about this? Should we be worried about Preller? What's going on? Like, maybe it was just like, look, it's already weird. People are waiting for the AJ extension. There's talks about reorganization. We don't want to make anything more complicated for the front office. We're just doing, so here's your quote. We're not trading him. And AC's like, can I put your name? No. You say it, but it's attributed to nobody. Those are my two prevailing theories. Do you like either of them?
I think, it's fair to say, hey, listen, we are just, we cannot possibly comment on every rumor that exists out there on the vast expanse of the World Wide Web, as Kevin AC wrote. I understand that as a general principle that we cannot do this. We cannot do this for every person because then you're going to ask me, okay, so you're not going to trade him, but what about Jake Cronenworth? You're going to trade him, right? So you cannot respond to every one of these rumors, and I grant that there might be a policy in place that says as much. This is Fernando Tatis Jr., though. This is not any other player. This is Fernando Tatis Jr. I do think there is a difference commenting on Fernando Tatis Jr. and commenting on almost anybody else on this roster. Now, on our rundown, I also would say that AJ Preller wasn't exactly over the top in his praise recently of Fernando Tatis Jr. when he was, we should just employ Marty at this point because we use all of her audio. So Marty was at the introductory press conference for Craig Stammen the other day, And of course, she asked AJ Preller about this. Can we play this clip from Instagram? This is Marty Caswell. Her Instagram, she's posting all these videos and clips on YouTube. So go find Marty Time TV. But I also thought this was, and again, I agree. Like I just, it's Fernando Tatis Jr. I know you don't want to respond to every single one of these guys, and it's probably a bad precedent, but it's Fernando. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's okay. You can comment on it. But if the sentiment isn't accurate to your point from a second ago, then why is somebody telling Kevin Acee that?
Yeah.
Emphatically.
I don't
Emphatically.
I
They're
don't
emphatically saying they're not going to do it. So if it is that
Yeah.
emphatically from a source that Kevin Acee trusts, then say it. That's all I'm saying. Anyhow, here's AJ Preller the other day, presented with the rumors circulating around the World Wide Web.
National report that you guys could be looking to trade Tatis. Is there anything you want to address on that?
No, I didn't see that, so that's kind of news to me. I think, again, like our team, our core, we have a lot of belief in the group, and Fernando, as much as anybody. He's just come off a season where he won the Platinum Glove. He played close to 162. He's one of the most talented players in the game. I think, you talk to Fernando, he'll be the first to tell you, like, yeah, I think there's another step or stage that I can get to that we're probably going to need if we're going to look to win championships here. And we've seen a lot here in San Diego, his ability to do that. So I think that's the exciting part, is kind of getting now, after the hiring of Craig, putting a staff together so we can start having those conversations with Toddy about, all right, what is that next step? If we're going to look up and you're having that MVP season that we all know he's capable of, what does he need to do it, and what does that look like here in San Diego? So, again, we have a really good core. I think we're looking to fill out fill out the roster around that core. And we have a team that we believe a lot in. Toddy's at the top of that list.
Right. Well, there you go. So, that's, and not exactly like, oh man, are you kidding me? This guy, we wouldn't trade this guy in a million years. And he talks about the core. Does anybody think for a single second? I mean, Xander Bogaerts is probably part of that core. He would trade that guy in the blink of an eye. So,
right.
Let's not pretend like he wouldn't trade one of these pieces from the core. He didn't exactly come out and say, like, shoot the rumor down. If anything, he's like, yeah, we need more from the guy. Like what's the deal here? And I'm glad that he said it that way, because I see so many others twisting themselves in the knots to try to tell you that Fernando Tatis Jr. had some magical season, which, some of us, I guess, are just not smart enough to recognize.
He did have a very good season. I'm kind of on that side.
Yeah, well, you were on the opposite side of AJ Preller, because AJ Preller seemed to think, there's a lot more we can expect from that guy. And by the way, the player himself seems to think that he should be better than what he was for this magical season that you guys all claim happened.
I do think there's obviously potential for him to be better. Like he went through like a 2.5 month long slump, but I still think he had a really good
John, that's
season.
part of the season.
He rounded out his game and made it so that even a down season, he was a really good player. Yeah, if you were to ask me, like, who do I think is completely untradeable from the Padres, I'd be like Tatis, maybe Merrill, maybe Manny, but like that's kind of it. That's the end of my list, I think. And Tatis is the only one that didn't have a maybe in front of it.
You wouldn't trade Manny?
I said maybe. That's almost more a marketing thing than anything. Because I'm pretty worried about what the end of that contract looks like. Like if they traded Manny, I think a lot of fans would be really upset about it. But I think the nerds like you and I would be like, guys, this is okay. This gives them flexibility. You don't want to be paying 42-year-old Manny Machado to be like, we would have to talk people into it. But Tatis is another thing. Like he's
right. That's why I don't think really I think if you're going to make an exception to a rule that you're not going to comment on every trade rumor, this is one that you can make.
Yeah.
You can make this exception to this rule because of who he is. And he is different than almost anybody else on your roster. But again, this is just a nitpick and it doesn't really matter. I saw the story. I saw the headline. I was like, good. They put this fire out. And then you read it and I just was like, why can't they just say something? Why can't somebody say this on the record? This isn't something that needs to be kept off the record. Not a knock on Kevin, just to be clear here, because I'm sure that Kevin got this quote from somebody who you would believe, who is credible. But it doesn't make any sense to me when the whole purpose of you being there is that you get people on the record. I know you're doing bunch of background work as well, but I think you can make an exception, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. All right. Any other questions we want to address since we are open here and we're live today? And I can see on Twitter there's several hundred people that are paying attention to this.
Let's see. There was some interesting stuff in the chat that I saw.
Yeah, I
a
mean,
second
I'm
ago.
happy to go through some of the chat.
Do you want to read this one? Because this one made me laugh. Hold on.
From Bone Hugs and
Thugmany?
Thugmany. AC is better than Shakespeare. Oh, it dropped.
I
It was
guess.
better than Shakespeare, Dostoevsky, Shelley, Camus. I'm not even sure who that is. Cervantes.
Kafka.
Yeah,
Basically, AC is the greatest writer of all time. I thought
that was a good
really funny.
chapter. I mean, that was really a good paragraph from AC, right? Wouldn't you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah.
Did you read that story about the penny, by the way?
No, I saw it. It came across my timeline a couple different times, and I was like, I knew the penny was going away. Like, I don't need more information about it. But now that as soon as you said that, I was like, I'm gonna go back and read that if it's that well written.
It was written like an obituary, that the penny
Oh,
died. It
that's
was born
fantastic.
252 years ago. And it had a bunch of really, really good quips and good nuggets too. I mean, I think we all know by now that a penny costs 3 cents to make.
Yeah,
And you know what's next, John, is the nickel. You know how much it costs to make a nickel?
I do know this.
10 cents.
Yeah. I mean, is what it is. There's not a lot of questions in the chat, or at least not questions that
Well, let's
we
read some of the
haven't-
comments then for people that are going to listen to this later, since we're all it's like 11:15 and all of this just broke within the last couple of hours.
Yeah, people
can
are
get
fighting
people's instant
about
reaction.
Tatis because we said nice things about Tatis. So the people that are don't like Tatis are mad about it. Here's a guy who found our stream. He's happy about it. There's a guy who went on a whole rant about how the team needs to platoon at every position, and platooning is the best way to win for cheap. Let's see. This is good. You won't find many ownership groups that have that kind of love for the game in the city. When we were
Right.
talking about Peter, this guy said Peter was a true baseball fan first.
Yeah.
This was interesting. Someone said that all of this was the only reason that they interviewed first-time managers and no experienced managers. Do you buy that at all? Because I kind of saw that. I was like, that feels like you're tying together strings that are unrelated to each other. But I mean, do you think that do you think Craig Stammen knew about this?
Well, look, can I take this question? I will get back to it,
Sure.
but I don't want to lose my thought because
Yep.
that happens pretty easily these
Yep.
days. It does make me wonder if this at all was a factor in Mike Schultz's decision. Did Mike Schultz catch wind of this and say, I'm getting out of here?
It's a
I
good
brought up the
question.
fact that I got a text from somebody with a different team who referred to the Padres as a burning building. And somebody joked and it was a joke. Again, I don't want to turn everything into content because I want people to continue to text me. But it was a joke about Preller running out the back door of the burning building. And I wonder now, whoa, okay. But I wonder maybe Mike Schultz kind of caught wind of this. Mike did a lot of things. It was very I don't know that he would walk away from millions of dollars because he sort of sensed that a sale was rapidly approaching. But we do know that at least publicly, a big part of his motivation was Peter Seidler. And, Shield Seidler even took to social media to thank Mike Schultz for everything because it wasn't just baseball. It was Lucky Duck Foundation. Cynically, people have thought his motivation and his intentions, maybe were a little bit where they shouldn't have been, but that doesn't matter. I do wonder though if Mike Schultz saw, hey, this thing ain't going in the right direction. I'm out of here. As far as first-time managers, yeah, maybe. I mean, generally speaking, those people are usually those people are cheaper. Shouldn't say cheaper, but you don't have to pay those people as much. Now,
Right.
we don't know what Albert Pujols would want. I mean, Albert Pujols probably wasn't coming in here to accept the same payroll as Craig Stammen, the same salary, but
And this guy right here, I'll put this up for a few seconds, makes a pretty interesting point, which is that Stammen being someone who knows a lot of these guys in the locker room as a teammate, as a player first, means he's not really viewed as the ownership is sending in this manager to help manage the team. It's more like, this is our guy, and we can just ignore everything above him. We can ignore the ownership situation. We can even ignore whatever's going on in the front office. We just ride in the clubhouse and we ignore everything else. There might be
Possible.
something to that.
yeah, I mean that's sort of one of the things that was suggested about Flaherty is that Flaherty, when it is that he's going to get his managerial opportunity. He wanted it to maybe be a little bit more stable. I think
Sure.
that's, Dennis sort of touched on it yesterday. I think.
heard that. He
Yeah.
said Flaherty wasn't interested in the job. And I was like, oh, I feel like that's the first time we had heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much of this was revealed in the interview process? How much does Nick Hundley know about this? Does Albert Pujols know that this was coming? I mean, if you're offering a guy a contract and talking about a potential job of 3 years, and you're also having conversations about like next year, blah blah blah. Like, I don't know. Which I feel like
that's one of the things I think people have to admit today, John. Like, those are the 3 words that I think a lot of people locally need to say.
I don't know.
Often. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
It's okay not to have the answers on this sort of stuff, but pretending like you do is a bigger mistake. I was just sending a screen grab of Sheil Seidler's Instagram. She has reposted somebody's post that says, so sad that the Seidler brothers are thinking about selling the Padres when Sheil could have kept the team. Love you and appreciate you so much, Mrs. Seidler. So she has reposted that for what that's worth.
I do think the multi-generational thing that Grupner was talking about, that he was like, Peter said that, blah, blah. I was like, that was Peter talking about handing it off to his kids. Like, not just like, oh, let's keep it in the Seidler. Like, he was like, no, I want to run this long enough that I can hand it over to my kids. Now, his kids are probably not old enough. And I don't know that Sheil has the bank to be buying out other owners. But that's why I said, I was like, is the guy who's selling his 10% stake, is he selling it to Sheil? Like, who's he selling it to? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, does she have the money? I don't really know the answer to that. Again, this is why they're still in court and why they haven't settled.
Right.
So maybe this is a way to settle all of that. Nobody really can know for sure. It's just a bunch of speculation today, including that post, by the way. I just think it's interesting that it's going to social media. I mean, I think about it too. I looked up what Theo Epstein is doing these days, because I know, like, the next thing for Theo wasn't just getting back and being a general manager. Theo had outgrown being a general manager, president of baseball operations. And a friend of mine told me a couple of years ago that he was involved in private equity, that was involved in sports ownership. He bought into the Boston Red Sox in 2024.
I remember that.
I mean, if you're asking me to pluck a name out of the clouds here today,
Theo.
yeah.
I love that. I was going to ask you to pluck a name, and it felt rude, but I'm glad you did it yourself, because that's a great name.
I wonder if he could divest from the Red Sox. I mean, Theo, as far as I know, last time I checked, still had a house in Pacific Beach, started his career here in San Diego. He was an intern for the San Diego Padres while he was going through law school. I think coming into an organization where he could honor one of his mentors and one of his close friends, Kevin Towers, to come in here. If in fact, I don't know every last detail of what it is that Theo is up to these days. I just know that he's part of a group. I would think it would be a stretch that Theo would divest from Fenway Sports Group with the Boston Red Sox and Liverpool, but you never know. Maybe we can offer him a piece of SDFC instead. Who wants to be part of Liverpool? That's a sinking ship anyway.
He's also got part of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
That's a name. I mean, if you want to, and there's no real reason for this. I am literally plucking this from the clouds. Just before we wrap up, like I did take the time to say, well, what is Theo? Like, what is his role? What is the name of this group that he's involved with? But I suspect he's probably. I was told years ago, Theo's next step isn't just, he could chart a course here. Does he want to be a commissioner? Does he want to be an owner? And I was told that Theo very much was interested in ownership, but it appears he has that. It appears he has that now with Fenway Sports Group and the Pittsburgh. What were they? The Penguins?
Penguins.
That's hockey. Yeah,
that's hockey.
Well, trade it on in here. You can have a great life in San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a part owner, he's a minority owner, and he's a senior advisor to Fenway Sports Group, who is the majority owner of the Boston Red Sox. So that's not quite the same as being the control guy. Yep. That's not quite the same as being at the owners meeting.
Yep.
That's
being
not quite
being the guy.
That's not the same as being the guy who's on the radio and the guy who dreams about giving the speech at the end of the parade. That would be interesting.
I would say I've learned enough about Joe Tsai as a sports owner with the Brooklyn Nets that I'm not as I wouldn't be as excited
It's
about
funny you
that
say
one.
that. It just popped up in the chat too. That's the name everyone keeps going to because
Pretty
according
bad
to
owner with the Nets, man.
yeah, according to the San Diego Business Journal, Joe Tsai is the richest San Diegan. He is the wealthiest San Diegan. And, he's shown an interest in owning sports teams because he owns the Brooklyn Nets and he owns the San Diego Seals. Sure. But yeah, I think he's done pretty good things with the Seals. The Nets, I mean, he kind of bought a train wreck, but he hasn't really done a lot to put that train back on the tracks, really. I don't
But he
know.
built the train. I mean, he was the owner who brought in Kyrie Irving and Durant.
That's true.
I mean, this was on his watch, and then Steve Nash, and then they blow Steve Nash out, and all of a sudden players are. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I just
I'm
haven't seen it.
with
I know
you.
he's got a lot of money, but I haven't seen it manifest in terms of any sort of stable ownership.
Yeah,
The
and
Jacobs family, I'm sure right now, if Scott Kaplan is streaming someplace, I'm sure
he's
Scott
talking about
Kaplan is
him.
screaming about the Jacobs family because he's
Yeah.
very close with them. And, he might have some good insight on that, whereas I'm just literally plucking names out of the clouds. But
Yeah, I looked into. I mean, Erwin Jacobs. No offense to him, really, like great guy. Gives a lot of his money to causes in San Diego. Try walking around the zoo, you'll see his name 1,000 times. But he's very old. He's very old. He's in the twilight of his life. I don't think he's interested in this. Now, his son,
Mhm.
who is a minority owner of the Sacramento Kings, might be interested in it, but he would probably need his dad's money if he was going to do something like this. But yeah, there's interesting names out there. I think that the Theo one is my favorite. I wouldn't have even come up with that at all, but that's a
Yeah,
great one.
but he's got a seat at the table with Fenway Sports Group, and that's probably pretty appealing. But if you're a guy like that, I don't think you're ever stopping, right? Guys like Theo are always looking for what is the next thing? What is the next thing? Like they're always thinking just a couple of years ahead. But more than likely, it's probably going to be some name that we never heard of, and we'll have to get used to it. But
Right.
again, having to go through the MLB process, I'm sure they're going to say, "Hey, listen, the other guy that was in there, he racked up all these bills and he was willing to take money out. Like you're not going to do that, right? Like you're not going to be that kind of owner, are you? You're not going to be the kind of owner that's getting criticized by Dick Monfort and some of these other owners around the league, right? We're not going to." We're not going to make other owners in these mid markets look bad, are we? I'm sure that is going to be part of the vetting process for whomever it is that comes through the door.
This is what I wanted to say about Joe Tsai and him owning the Nets and him owning the San Diego Seals is that the Nets deal inside of a very strict CBA and a pretty complicated salary cap situation. The Seals do not. He seems like he as the wealthiest man in any room he's ever been in. He seems like he prefers the latter, as is the case in MLB right now. But this is kind of the thing. If you were to ask Joe Tsai, "Are you interested in buying the San Diego Padres?" He would look and he would go, "Oh, no salary cap over there. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Is there going to be a salary cap next year? Is there going to be a salary cap after the lockout? I don't like salary caps. I lose my advantage. My pilot ships don't really matter as much when there's a salary cap." So yeah, that's why I find it hard to believe that this sale would happen before a potential lockout. And I hope I'm wrong about that because I don't want to be talking about this for a year plus.
Well, I mean, it's a big flashing light right now, and I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of suitors. So this isn't the Tampa Bay Rays. It is the San Diego Padres, and
Mhm.
I do think that means something if you're interested in getting involved in sports ownership. All right. Again, we had intentions of talking about other stuff today, and obviously we've just sort of been here reacting in real time to everything that's been going on. More might come down the path in the next couple of hours, so stay tuned. Go to section1904.com. Thank you for those that were chiming in or listening in on X and on YouTube. We do this every day, Monday through Friday. Go to section1904.com if this is your first time experiencing us and some of the things that we try to do here. Apologies to San Diego State. We just, we're just not going to, doesn't make a ton of sense to talk about this game right now. We'll get to it probably tomorrow. I have to go clean out my my Wii polls to make sure that I don't flood my living room since we are expecting lots and lots of rain over the next couple of days. I don't know what
Loads of
your
it.
rain prep is.
I don't have weep holes, but I do have I have to make sure that the pool is not too full, because then that'll overflow, and then I have drains around the yard and stuff that I have to make sure are cleared of debris, so all the water has somewhere to
Yeah,
go.
I mean, the Padres could trade Tatis tomorrow, and all anybody will be talking about is the weather and the rain. So, you got to pick your time. You got to pick your moments when you're going to do it. I would do it right before a major storm, because we all know we're going to have reporter after reporter standing down there on Mission Boulevard in Pacific Beach and a dog in a canoe floating across an intersection. So it's usually the way these things go. Get your sandbags out, and everybody be careful out there. It's a beautiful day, though. It's nice and sunny here in Imperial Beach, but
And it's gorgeous here today.
got to clean some weep holes, and then I'm going to watch. I'm going to fill myself with false hope that Ireland could beat Portugal in a World Cup qualifier coming up in about 30 minutes, but I suspect that won't be the case. Got a bunch of teams that are going to punch their ticket to the World Cup, John. Excited for that?
Yes, I actually was doing a little bit of research yesterday about where I think it was the Get CONCACAF Substack sent out a list of, like, here's all the qualifying games and here's where you can watch them and when they'll be on, and I was stashing that away so that I could watch as much soccer as possible for the next few days.
Yeah, it looks like France, Portugal, Norway. Erling Haaland coming to the World Cup, getting Norway into that's exciting. Netherlands tomorrow. All right, well, that's my afternoon. Weep holes and European soccer World Cup qualifiers. Exciting times, man. All right.
And hopefully people keep texting you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think it's even people on the inside. Like I said, I think that there was, probably some Zoom calls and staff meetings today. I mean, I remember I was in spring training when Jeff Morad got denied, and like, very bizarre day. And I do feel for employees, because, there's a lot of people whose names you don't know who are going, what do I do now? What do I do? So many of the employees who helped build Petco Park got let go when John Moore shifted ownership to the Jeff Morad group. And those people were there from the end of Qualcomm to the beginning of Petco Park, people that did a million things. And it's just it's a crummy feeling. Yeah, I know from a fan perspective, we're just sitting fretting about what payroll is going to look like and things like that. But there's a lot of people who have real life questions, I'm sure, about what this means for them, and their names that you don't necessarily know, and people whose stories you don't hear a bunch, but you can imagine what it's like. And we've all worked for companies that go through some sort of ownership shift or what have you. So it'll be a lot. We'll be around. Section1904.com. Again, thank you all for listening to us ramble on here for a little bit, as we'll do it live. We'll do it again tomorrow. Peace out.